Good morning, everyone. Welcome to everyone. Can confirm that they can hear me.
Not yet.
Okay.
It's fine. No one answer, but I believe that it will record you from the phone. I think that I believe that it will record you from the phone, right?
Did you hear yourself?
Yeah, so it will because you are the participant. That device is the participant. Yeah.
Welcome everyone to this breakfast talk about the conceptual PDR. I am the director from ECCIL EuroCham. I'm your host today. And I will start by thanking our speakers. I hope you will give us some time and expertise. And I will present you what EuroCham does. The event is organized with the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk and EuroCham PDR. EuroCham. The point of the mission to work. We are the only organization that represents the interest of European businesses in Laos. So, almost like our objective is to facilitate two-way investment strategies in Laos. To create a single voice of European businesses in Laos, and before the dialogue of Laos authorities and because we of course represent the interest of European companies, whether they're in Europe or doing business with PDR, or with now companies who are here and want to visit Europe as well. And after that, I really PDR, the European business community, as an investment destination and vice versa. We do that by providing services for learn and by aggregating their interest. And we do that by facilitating differences between European and Lao companies. In the next slide, I'm sorry, this doesn't work. We have over 100 members at the moment. The number has been steadily rising since the beginning of the year 2022 after a couple of years of stagnation for the reason we all know. Next slide, please. We represent, we have bigger sponsor, which you see here, and pretty much almost half of our members are SMEs. Next slide, please. Yes. As you can see here, this is the 45% here in green are SMEs. Next slide. We have members coming from all the activity sector. You can see here from media, advertising, manufacturing, logistics, tax, insurance, import, export, hospitality, handicraft, finance, energy, development, consulting, finance, construction, automotive, and agriculture are all being represented. It is worth to note that until 2019, hospitality used to be the largest sector represented, but after the COVID crisis, the number went down, and now consulting companies are the largest sector represented, not in number, but in numbers. In terms of numbers of members registered, the numbers of company, not by the number of people employed or something like that. Next slide, please, Lily. Oh, super. And usually our members join us because they are looking to join a strong network, not only in our PDR, but also worldwide. Because they want to receive support, not only from like the permanent team here, but also from fellow professionals benefiting from their experience. And because they also want to take a more active role in advocating for an improved business environment in our PDR. And because they want to learn more about the EU market, because they're looking at the EU market for export, for example. So what we do is that we try to be the entry point of the Lao market. And for that, we provide services such as providing insightful information on the Lao markets. And this breakfast talk certainly qualifies for that. We bring to you information from experts that will be valuable to your business. We do organize, we do market survey upon request. We organize delegation, we do capacity building. We do a lot of trainings, whether they are in-house or public, or here on soft skills, hard skills. ECCIL has been doing that for over 10 years, so they have a vast network of trainers in Lao PDR, in Thailand, overseas, because the training can also happen online. We do regular events such as seminars or breakfast talks, conference, and networking reception. But one of our core mission is, of course, advocacy. Because a single company can really have a discussion with the Lao government. So whenever there is some new development, new notification, something that hinders one of our members' business, they will come to us. We will then hold a roundtable consultation to get everyone's opinion, to find consensus, and then we will take it to the relevant authorities for a fruitful discussion with the Lao authorities. That's what we mostly do. I think this is the last one. Okay. So this is a brief overview of what EuroCham does. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. For the people online as well, you can send your question in the chat window box and I can answer them at the end. If not, I will let the floor to our next speaker. All right, I'm going to change the presentation. Our next speaker is Mr. Canton. The floor is yours. You need to change the presentation window.
สบายดีเนาะบุ้งว่าสามารถเล่าภาษาลาวได้ไหม
ว่าภาษาลาวได้เช่น
มันวันนี้ก็รู้สึกดีใจนะที่ว่าได้ขึ้นมาให้บรรยายเนาะเกี่ยวกับความสำคัญกับสิ่งบรรยายเนาะต่อการเก็บธุรกิจเนาะซึ่งวันนี้ก็ถือว่าข้าพเจ้าเองถัดคนตัวเนาะเป็นของเชียงใหม่เนาะเป็นผู้นักแสดงส่งเสริมและพัฒนาสตรีปัญญาฉะนั้นในแยกตรงนี้เนาะ
It doesn't. Okay.
สำหรับเนื้อในของวันนี้เนาะจะมาว่าวันนี้จะแมนเขาจะมาว่าถึงกับทรัพย์สินปัญญาโดยรวมเนาะแล้วก็มีความสำคัญที่ไหนต่อการพัฒนาเศรษฐกิจเนาะและการตัวที่สองก็จะเป็นการทรัพย์สินปัญญาเนาะมันจะสามารถช่วยอย่างได้ดีเนาะเกี่ยวกับสังคมหรือว่าสภาพเศรษฐกิจของเขาโดยรวมอันเนาะแล้วก็สุดท้ายจะมาลงลึกถึงด้านเรื่องเครื่องหมายการค้าและก็เรื่องชิ้นกำเนิดเนาะว่ามันมีความสำคัญและก็มีความจำเป็นอะไรต่อการดำเนินธุรกิจนี้อยู่ต่างในของตลาดนี้เนาะนั่นถ้าเรามองว่าถึงเรื่องทรัพย์สินปัญญาเนาะเขาจะคาดก็ได้คือว่าทางด้านการค้าเนาะมันจะมีการสร้างมูลค่าเนาะต่างๆให้แก่การดำเนินธุรกิจเนาะเพราะว่าจะเป็นการเป็นสถานทรัพย์สินปัญญาเนาะก็จะเป็นในฐานะที่ว่าเป็นทรัพย์สินทางด้านธุรกิจนั้นเนาะคือนี่เนี่ยนะแล้วก็ต่อมาก็จะเป็นทรัพย์สินปัญญาก็มันจะเฮ็ดตัวเองเนาะในนามที่ว่าเป็นฐานะในการเป็นนักลงทุนเนาะและการทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาก็สามารถการส่งเสริมการตลาดและก็สุดท้ายก็จะเป็นบนเรื่องทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาที่มีให้สร้างมูลค่าเนาะเกี่ยวกับตัวสินค้าและก็ตัวคอมมูนิตี้เนาะเดี๋ยวเขาจะมาลงลึกเข้าใจได้สำหรับที่มันเป็นอย่างเราสร้างมูลค่าเกี่ยวกับตัวอย่างเนาะแต่เมื่อเราที่มันเป็นการสมมติเราได้รับการข้อมูลการลงทุนเนาะสถิติปัญญาจะได้รับผลตรงนั้นเนาะก็จะมีมูลค่าในธุรกิจได้แล้วก็สถิติปัญญาเนาะเราจะสามารถเข้าไปเพื่อบริษัทเนาะหรือผลิตภัณฑ์ที่เราสามารถอนุญาตเนาะให้ผู้นั้นใช้สิทธิ์ในการผลิตเนาะแล้วก็ซึ่งอาจเสริมการแบ่งตลาดเนาะตัวอย่างเขาอาจจะมีสาขาย่อยหรือว่าเพิ่มเป็นแบรนด์ต่างๆเนาะแต่สร้างมูลค่าหรือว่าสร้างกำไรเนาะให้แก่บริษัทเนี่ยผลประโยชน์จากต่างประเทศเนาะตัวอย่างมันจะมีโตโยต้าหรือฮอนด้าต่างๆมันก็จะมีสาขาในแต่ละประเทศเนาะเข้ามาเนาะแล้วก็จะสร้างกำไรให้แก่บริษัทแล้วก็สร้างแบรนด์เนาะสร้างแล้วก็นอกจากนี้เนาะเรื่องทรัพย์สินปัญญาของเขาเนาะมันก็จะสามารถแบ่งเป็นสองอย่างเนาะคือทรัพย์สินสามารถจับตายได้แล้วก็จับต้องได้เนาะตัวนี้นะโดยเฉพาะจะเป็นพวกทรัพย์สินอย่างทรัพย์สินที่เขาสามารถจับต้องได้ก็จะเป็นพวกแบรนด์หรือประกาศออกแบบหรือว่าไอเดียคอนเซ็ปต์อย่างต่างๆเนาะการชิงประดิษฐ์อย่างต่างๆตัวนั้นเนาะก็ถือว่าเป็นทรัพย์สินปัญญาที่ว่ามีคุณค่าเนาะแล้วก็มันจะมีสร้างคุณค่าเนาะในการที่แต่นอกจากนี้เนาะเป็นก็เป็นการลงทุนนี่คือว่าคนพูดแล้วเนาะว่าถ้าสมมติว่าเขามีสติปัญญาแล้วเนาะมีไอเดียเนาะมีคอนเซ็ปต์แล้วการลงทุนตัวนี้เนาะก็ถือว่าสามารถไปต่อยอดในการที่ธุรกิจได้เนาะฉะนั้นถ้าไม่ได้มาลงเรื่องตัวนี้เลยเนาะว่าปัจจัยว่าสติปัญญาเรามีการปัจจัยเป็นปัจจัยหลักตัวหนึ่งเนาะที่ว่าเห็นให้เศรษฐกิจเนาะมีการขยายตัวเนาะเพราะว่าจะเป็นการเพราะว่าทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างมันมีการอาศัยการค้นคิดประดิษฐ์สร้างหรือว่าค้นคิดที่ว่าเป็นไอเดียใหม่ๆเนาะฉะนั้นในชีวิตประจำวันของพวกเราแน่นอนความคิดมันจะบ่มีการหยุดนิ่งเนาะฉะนั้นเมื่อมีการปัญหาเกิดขึ้นเนาะเขาจะมีวิธีการแก้ไขปัญหาตัวนั้นขึ้นมาแล้วก็มีการค้นคิดที่ประดิษฐ์แปลงนั้นขึ้นมาเพื่อให้สามารถเราใช้ประโยชน์หรือว่า เห็นนั้นคนงานตรงนั้นมีการมาทำการปกป้องมีได้เนาะและก็ในเมื่อทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาของเราเนาะได้ทำการปกป้องอย่างมีประสิทธิภาพเนาะช่วยให้กระตุ้นมีการลงทุนในต่างประเทศเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นปัจจัยสำคัญคือว่าถ้าสังคมของเขาเนาะมีระบบการปกป้องทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาที่ว่าเข้มแข็งเนาะการลงทุนจากต่างประเทศเนาะก็มีความเชื่อมั่นเนาะที่ว่าสามารถจะมาลงทุนเนาะนำมาดำเนินธุรกิจบ้านเขาได้เพราะว่าได้รับการปกป้องจากการลอกเลียนแบบบอลหรือว่าการละเมิดสิทธิทางด้านทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาต่างๆเมื่อสินค้าหรือว่าการบริการมีการขยายตัวออกไปที่ไหนหรือไปออกไปต่างประเทศเนาะทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาแห่งมีบทบาทที่สูงเนาะในการปกป้องสิทธิประโยชน์ของผู้ประกอบการในจุดนี้เนาะเขาหมายความว่าคันสมมุติว่าเราตัวนี้จะเบิกเบาในเรื่องผลิตภัณฑ์ที่เป็นของคนลาวเนาะหรือว่าที่ว่าเขาอาจจะมีความต้องการที่จะนำออกหรือว่าส่งขายไปต่างประเทศเนาะตัวนี้ก็ถือว่าทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาก็ถือว่าเป็นบทบาทตัวหนึ่งที่ว่าเป็นเครื่องมือให้ข้าเจ้าในการปกป้องสิทธิของข้าเจ้าอยู่ต่างประเทศเช่นเดียวกันเดี๋ยวตัวนี้เขาจะมาว่าตัวนี้มีระบบต่างประเทศอีกวันหนึ่งเนาะโอเคเท่ามุ่งไปคร่าวๆแล้วเนาะว่าทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาของเขามันมีบทบาทอะไรแดงมีความสำคัญต่างๆเนาะแล้ววันนี้เขาจะมาลงลึกเนาะว่าทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาของนี้ก็มีภาคส่วนใดๆเนาะตัวนี้หลายๆทางอาจจะอย่างจะสับสนหรือว่าอะไรอย่างบ่ทันเข้าใจว่าองค์ประกอบของทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาที่แท้นั้นมีอย่างไรบางคนเนาะอาจจะเข้าใจว่ามันทรัพย์สินทางปัญญามันก็กับเรื่องลิขสิทธิ์บอกเรื่องอย่างเนาะแต่ที่จริงแล้วเนาะทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาคือของประกอบด้วย3อย่างหลักๆเนาะว่าประมิตรจะเป็นทรัพย์สินทางด้านอุตสาหกรรมตัวที่2นี่มันลิขสิทธิ์และสิทธิที่เกี่ยวข้องกับลิขสิทธิ์เนาะตัวที่3จะเป็นพันธุ์พืชใหม่ซึ่งลิขสิทธิ์และสิ่งเกี่ยวข้องกับลิขสิทธิ์ตัวนี้มันจะเป็นการปกป้องที่ว่าของคนงานหรือว่าการประดิษฐ์แต่งประดิษฐ์สร้างเนาะของนักศิลปินหรือว่านักศิลปะต่างๆยกตัวอย่างมันจะเป็นประเภทพวกนวัตศิลปะเนาะนวัตกรรมหรือว่าอย่างต่างๆที่ว่าเป็นการค้นคิดแต่งเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นผลงานทางด้านลิขสิทธิ์เป็นส่วนใหญ่เนาะแล้วก็ต้องมาไว้ให้เป็นพันธุ์พืชใหม่เนาะก็ถือว่าเป็นพันธุ์พืชหนึ่งเป็นพันธุ์พืชที่เอาสามารถเป็นมันยกตัวอย่างมันจะเป็นพันธุ์พืชที่ว่ามีอยู่แล้วเนาะเขาสามารถเก็บหรือว่าปรับปรุงให้มันดีขึ้นให้มันมีความที่ว่าไม่มีความแตกต่างเนาะจากตัวเก่าเนาะตัวนี้ถือว่ามันสามารถมาจดเป็นทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาทางด้านพันธุ์พืชใหม่ได้เนาะถ้าสำคัญสุดท้ายนี่คือในตัวทรัพย์สินที่ว่าเป็นอุตสาหกรรมนั่นเนาะจะประกอบด้วย8อย่างหลักๆเนาะที่จะเป็นพวกสิทธิบัตรเนาะแล้วก็อนุสิทธิบัตรและอุตสาหกรรมแล้วก็แบบพังจรวมแล้วก็เครื่องหมายการค้าที่มีแบบเดินแล้วก็ชื่อแบบค้าและสินค้าของเราทางด้านการค้าเนาะแต่ว่าสิ่งที่สำคัญที่สุดคือตัวนี้คือว่าเน้นในการส่งเสริมการสิ่งประดิษฐ์สร้างหรือว่าการประดิษฐ์คิดค้นคิดหรือว่าสิ่งประดิษฐ์ใหม่ๆเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นติดพันกับพวกสิทธิบัตรขั้นเนาะและอนุสิทธิบัตรเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้เป็นเรื่องนวัตกรรมเนาะเรื่องค้นคิดการสิ่งประดิษฐ์ใหม่ๆเนาะของโลกเนาะที่ว่าเป็นอันใหม่ๆของโลกเป็นเกี่ยวกับการจดสิทธิบัตรขั้นเนาะต่อมาก็จะเป็นเรื่องเครื่องหมายการค้าแล้วก็ที่เลือกแสงต่อสไลด์ต่อไปเลยเนาะสำหรับเครื่องหมายการค้านี่จะขออธิบายในแง่ทางด้านของผู้พื้นฐานกันก่อนเนาะว่าเครื่องหมายการค้านี้อาจจะมันเป็นอะไรเนาะมันเช่นจังใดมันจะสามารถมันนำใช้ในธุรกิจของพวกเขาเนาะแล้วก็เช่นจังใดเครื่องหมายการค้าเขาจะสามารถได้รับการจดทะเบียนหรือว่ามันมีความสำคัญจังใดเนาะฉะนั้นเครื่องหมายการค้านี้ก็รวมแล้วมันจะเป็นตัวหนึ่งที่ว่าใช้จำแนกเนาะระหว่างสินค้าหรือการบริการของเขากับสินค้าการบริการของคนอื่นเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้มันก็จะเป็นหลายรูปแบบเนาะก็หมายถึงจะเป็นตัวหนังสือสัญลักษณ์ต่างๆตัวนี้แล้วแต่การดีไซน์แล้วแต่ไอเดียที่เขาจะสามารถเป็นออกมาได้เนาะแล้วก็เครื่องหมายการค้าจะประกอบด้วย4ประเภทหลักๆก็คือว่าเครื่องหมายการค้า ตัวที่2ที่เป็นเครื่องหมายที่เป็นบริการตัวที่3เป็นเครื่องหมายที่เป็นลงมูลแล้วก็เป็นเครื่องหมายทับหอกเป็นอันดับสุดท้ายเนาะซึ่งเครื่องหมายการค้ามันจะใช้สำหรับพวกสินค้าทั่วไปเนาะเพราะว่าจะเป็นผลิตภัณฑ์พวกบริโภคอย่างต่างๆเนาะแล้วก็จะมีพวกเครื่องหมายบริการเนาะใช้เกี่ยวกับพวกว่าจะเป็นโรงแรมอาหารให้คำปรึกษาอย่างต่างๆตัวนี้จะเป็นหน่อยเครื่องหมายการบริการนั้นซึ่งเครื่องหมายลงมูลเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นหลายๆกลุ่มหรือว่าหลายๆเจ้าของผลิตที่มาอยู่ร่วมกันเนาะแล้วก็ใช้เครื่องหมายตัวเดียวกันเนาะตัวนี้จะถือว่าเป็นเครื่องหมายลงมูลเนาะตัวอย่างตัวนี้ก็จะเป็นพวกกับตัวบางอันที่มีการอยู่ตรงนี้เนาะแล้วก็ตัวสุดท้ายจะเป็นตัวเครื่องหมายที่เป็นของเนาะตัวนี้เป็นเครื่องหมายตัวนี้มันจะเฮ็ดขึ้นมาเพื่อให้ผู้อื่นมานำใช้เอาไปทำของสินค้าตัวใดตัวหนึ่งนะเพราะว่าจะเป็นการทำของคุณภาพบ่เรื่องของคุณภาพบ่เรื่องความสะอาดบ่หรือว่าความปลอดภัยเนาะอย่างต่างๆตรงนี้นิดหน่อยนั่นตัวนี้ก็สิ่งที่สามารถอาจจะมาเป็นเครื่องหมายการค้าได้เนาะตัวอย่างอันที่เป็นที่ว่าเป็นคำศัพท์หรือเป็นข้อความหรือว่าลายเซ็นต่างๆโลโก้ก็จะมีตัวอย่างอันที่เห็นอยู่ในหน้าจอกันเนาะแล้วตัวนี้จะเป็นเครื่องหมายที่ว่าคือแอดแวนซ์ขึ้นไปตื่นเนาะเพราะอาจจะมีนอกจากที่ว่าเป็นเครื่องหมายที่เป็นรูปทางปกติอยู่แล้วเนาะบางสินค้าบางการบริการอาจจะเสริมความดึงดูดหรือว่าเพิ่มความจดจำให้กับลูกค้าโดยการสร้างเป็นเครื่องหมายที่เป็น3 มิติหรือว่ารูปทรงของวัตถุหรือว่าของผลิตภัณฑ์ก็สามารถมาจดเป็นเครื่องหมายการค้าได้เนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นตัวอย่างของเครื่องหมายที่ว่ามีชื่อเสียงในโลกปัจจุบันนี้เนาะซึ่งตรงนี้เป็นการตีมูลค่ามีจำนวนตีมูลค่าทางด้านกำไรหรือว่าการยอดขายต่างๆเนาะแต่ว่าตัวนี้มันจะเป็นการตีราคาหรือว่าเป็นมูลค่าของแบรนด์ตัวนั้นเนาะว่ามันมีมูลค่าในหลายส่วนใดเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้เป็นข้อมูลล่าสุดเนี่ยเอามาจากอินเทอร์เน็ตเนาะตัวนี้อันดับที่1ของปีนี้ก็จะเป็นตัวผู้ตามในโซนMicrosoftต่างๆเนาะและตัวนี้ก็จะเป็นตัวอย่างของที่ลาวฉะนั้นเมื่อพวกเขาเข้าใจแล้วเนาะว่าทรัพย์สินทางปัญญามันเป็นอีหยังเรามีความสำคัญจังใดเนาะฉะนั้นเขาจะมาเข้าใจลงลึกถึงว่าสิทธิ์ในการหลังจากพวกเขาได้มาจดทะเบียนแล้วเนาะเรื่องทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาเขาจะมีสิทธิ์อย่างใดต่อหลังจากที่ว่าเขาได้รับการจดทะเบียนเป็นนั่นเนาะฉะนั้นตัวนี้จะเป็นตัวรวมสิทธิ์โดยรวมตัวเจ้าของทรัพย์สินอุตสาหกรรมเนาะหลังจากที่ได้รับการจดทะเบียนอย่างถูกต้องตามกฎหมายผู้ห้องขอหรือว่าท่านอาจจะกลายเป็นเจ้าของสินอุตสาหกรรมและจะมีสิทธิ์หลายๆอย่างอย่าง5อย่างตัวนี้เนาะโดยเฉพาะสิทธิเนาะจะมันได้ทำผลประโยชน์ที่ได้มาจากการแสวงหาผลประโยชน์ของสินทางอุตสาหกรรมนั้นเนาะส่วนที่2เป็นการโอนสิทธิ์ทั้งหมดหรือว่าส่วนใดส่วนหนึ่งของตัวเองโดยการขายหรือว่าแลกเปลี่ยนหรือว่าให้เช่าหรือว่าการมอบเนาะตัวนี้ถือว่าถ้าสมมุติเขามีสิทธิ์เกี่ยวกับทรัพย์สินปัญญาได้นึงเนาะเขาสามารถเอาไปโอนหรือว่าให้เป็นไลเซนส์หรือว่าให้เป็น assignment เองก็ได้เนาะเพราะว่าหลังจากนั้นเอามีสิทธิ์ในตัวทรัพย์สินไปแล้วเนาะตัวที่3จะเป็นอนุญาตให้บุคคลอื่นเนาะแสวงหาผลประโยชน์ทั้งหมดหรือว่าส่วนใดส่วนหนึ่งสิทธิ์การทรัพย์สินอุตสาหกรรมของตนเนาะตัวที่4จะเป็นการสืบทอดหรือว่าการทรัพย์สินต่ออุตสาหกรรมของตนให้กับผู้อื่นและตัวสุดท้ายที่5ในการปกป้องสินอุตสาหกรรมของตนตามกฎหมายของตัวบุคคลเนาะตัวนี้มันจะว่าทรัพย์สินอุตสาหกรรมแต่ตัวนี้เราจะมาลงลึกถึงสิทธิเจ้าของที่ว่าเป็นเครื่องหมายการค้าเนาะแล้วก็จะมีตัวย่อยเข้ามาคือเราคือว่า1มันสามารถป้องกันบ่ให้ผู้อื่นเนาะนำใช้เครื่องหมายที่ว่าคือการถือค่ายคือการผู้เหมาเนาะซึ่งการนำใช้ตัวนี้เนาะแม่นสันนิษฐานจะเป็นการนำใช้ที่ว่าจงใจหรือบ่จงใจก็จะเนาะถือว่าสันนิษฐานว่าก่อให้เกิดความสับสนแก่สังคมหรือว่าแก่คนอื่นนั้นถือว่าเขามีสิทธิ์ในการห้ามบ่ให้คนอื่นกระทำตัวนั้นเนาะตัวที่2จะเป็นการปกป้องบ่ให้บุคคลที่3ในการขายหรือว่าโฆษณาสินค้าของเขาที่นำใช้เครื่องหมายที่ว่าค่ายคือกับของหมายเนาะและการนำใช้เครื่องหมายกับโดยการที่ว่านำเข้าหรือว่าส่งออกสินค้าที่ติดเครื่องหมายที่ว่าค่ายคือของเขาเนาะแต่สุดท้ายจะเป็นการปกป้องผลประโยชน์ของเขาเนาะจากการละเมิดของผู้อื่นเนี่ยและเขาจะมีสิทธิ์ในการฟ้องเนาะแล้วก็สิทธิ์ในการได้รับการค่าชดเชยหรือว่าค่าเสียหายต่างๆเนาะที่ว่าผู้อื่นก็ขึ้นจากการก๊อปปี้หรือว่าการลงแก้ผู้ของเขา นัดวันนี้ต่อมาเนาะฉะนั้นเขาพูดแน่นอนว่าเขามีสิทธิ์อย่างเนาะต่อไปเขาจะมาพูดว่าบทบาทหรือความสำคัญของเครื่องหมายการค้าที่มีต่อธุรกิจที่มีอย่างแน่เนาะหลักๆตัวนี้เนาะใครซึ่งเขามีเครื่องหมายการค้าดีๆเนาะมันจะเป็นการเป็นเครื่องมือสื่อสารตัวหนึ่งที่ว่าสื่อสารกับผู้บริโภคหรือว่ากับลูกค้าที่มุ่งที่กับบริษัทหรือว่าสินค้าในการบริการของเขาเป็นอะไรเนาะว่ามีคุณภาพมีความน่าเชื่อถือหรือว่าความยักษ์ไส้สำหรับเนาะตัวนี้ถือว่าเป็นเครื่องมือสื่อสารที่ดีเนาะแล้วก็ต้องหมายการค้าจะสามารถช่วยให้ผู้บริโภคมุ่งเนาะเกี่ยวกับบริษัทกับผลิตภัณฑ์ต่างๆเกี่ยวกับของพวกเขาได้หลายขึ้นเนาะโดยที่ว่าการทุกๆอยู่ในสังคมเนาะหรือว่าอยู่ในตลาดเขาจะมีหลายแบรนด์หลายนั่นเนาะถ้าสมมติว่าเขาบ่มีตัวใดที่ว่าน่าจะจำเนาะเขาจะบ่สามารถเขาถ้าสมมติเขาจะสนใจเกี่ยวกับผลิตภัณฑ์ของเขาและจะบ่สามารถไปค้นหาได้เนาะถ้าสมมติว่าเขาจะบ่ชื่อเครื่องหมายของเขาแล้วก็อีกอย่างเนาะเครื่องหมายค่าก็จะช่วยให้ธุรกิจสามารถเหมือนใช้ในสื่อทางสังคมหรือว่าสื่อทางอินเทอร์เน็ตออนไลน์ต่างๆนั่นเนาะก็ใช้ตัวนี้ก็จะกลายเป็นแบรนด์ในการโฆษณาอยู่ถึงรอบแล้วก็ตัวหมายการค้าจะเป็นทรัพย์สินที่มีมูลค่าสูงถือได้ยกตัวอย่างในตลาดที่แล้วไปนั่นเนาะที่ว่าขึ้นมาที่ว่ามีชื่อเสียงเนาะโมเมนต์ตัวของการขายกำไรแต่ว่าเป็นตัวของมูลค่าของแบรนด์ตัวนั้นเนาะที่ว่ามีมูลค่าขึ้นนับมือนับหลักขึ้นเนาะแล้วก็เราก็สามารถเป็นตัวนี้ได้กันด้วยการจดทะเบียนตัวหมายการค้าเนาะในการเครื่องหมายการค้าของเขาก็จะมีการเข้ามาอย่างทางภายในและก็สากลเนาะตัวนี้อาจจะมีคำถามว่าทางสากลเนาะหรือว่าเจ้าของธุรกิจที่ไปอยู่ทาง EU เนาะอยู่ทางสภาพยุโรปเขาจะมาเห็นธุรกิจอยู่บ้านเขาแต่ว่าเขาจะมาจดทะเบียนทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาหรือโดยเฉพาะเครื่องหมายการค้าเนี่ยแล้วเขาจะมาด้วยตัวเองเลยเพราะเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้มันจะเป็นการที่ใช้มีการสิ้นเปลืองค่าใช้จ่ายหลายเนาะซึ่งทางทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาโลกเนาะก็จะมีระบบตัวหนึ่งของการจดทะเบียนสากลเกี่ยวกับเครื่องหมายเนาะซึ่งสามารถอนุญาตให้ทางต่างประเทศเนาะสามารถจดทะเบียนอยู่บ้านเขาเจ้าแล้วปกป้องอยู่ที่บ้านเขาได้เนาะแล้วก็ทางกลับกันเนาะอยู่บ้านเขาเขามีสินค้าเนาะแล้วเขาสามารถจดทะเบียนอยู่ที่ยุโรปหรือว่าอยู่ที่อเมริกาก็ถือว่าได้โดยผ่านระบบตัวนี้เนาะซึ่งระบบตัวนี้เนาะมันก็จะเป็นการยื่นคำร้องที่ว่าเป็นครั้งเดียวเนาะอยู่ที่ต้นทางจ่ายค่าธรรมเนียมแล้วก็จนก่อให้เกิดความสะดวกสบายแล้วก็ความคล่องไหวเนาะแล้วก็ทางประหยัดค่าใช้จ่ายอีกเนาะโดยที่ว่าจำเป็นจะต้องมีการแปลภาษาหรือว่าจะต้องได้จ้างบริษัทตัวแทนที่ว่าจะมาเอกสารนี้เนาะแล้วก็สำหรับขั้นตอนหรือว่ามันก็สามารถเฮ็ดได้หลายอย่างเนาะบ่ว่าจะเป็นการยื่นคำร้องบ่ว่าการต่ออายุการเปลี่ยนแปลงต่างๆเกี่ยวกับเครื่องหมายการค้าสามารถเฮ็ดได้ในระบบนี้เลยเนาะตัวนี้ถือว่าตามที่ท่านเห็นอยู่ในแมปเนาะก็ถือว่ามันมีเกือบทุกประเทศเนาะที่สามารถที่เป็นสมาชิกของระบบตัวมาตริกตัวนี้เนาะเพราะว่าระบบมาตริกซิสเต็มนี่เนาะมันมีทั้งหมดอยู่105 เมมเบอร์แต่ว่ารวมอยู่131ประเทศเนาะรวมทั้ง EU แล้วก็ตัว APA ที่อันนี้เนาะนั่นตัวนี้ถือว่าเป็นระบบที่สะดวกและก็ขอให้ก่อนอันนั้นหลายเนาะเกี่ยวกับเจ้าของเครื่องหมายการค้าที่จะปกป้องวิธีสากลเนาะหรือว่าสากลได้มาปกป้องวิธีสากลต่อไปจะมาเข้าถึงเรื่องถิ่นกำเนิดเนาะสำหรับถิ่นกำเนิดนี้เป็นสัญลักษณ์ที่บ่งบอกถึงที่แหล่งที่มาเนาะหรือว่าจากดินแดนหรือว่าเขตหรือว่าท้องถิ่นของประเทศใดหนึ่งซึ่งเป็นที่เฮ็ดให้สินค้าเนาะมีคุณภาพและมีชื่อเสียงและก็มีคุณลักษณะเฉพาะที่เฮ็ดให้ติดพันกับภูมิภาคต่างๆนั่นเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้เนาะก็จะอาจจะเป็นสินค้าทางด้านเกษตรกรรมอาหารดื่มหรือมหัศจรรย์ต่างๆที่เราสามารถเป็นสินค้าที่เลือกได้เนาะ
All good. Binley. Excuse me.
Did you unplug from?
Now. So you can figure out what the problem is. Oh, it's internet.
No, that's the HDMI cable. Plug with internet is good.
Not connected.
Yes.
Cover everything related to branding and the products. Whether it's for people who are importing something or to be imported. Anything about artistic intellectual properties? For instance, music. Lao people are really high consumers of music. Have you made any provision within your department to collect funds from the people who are using music as a marketing tool in order to pay copyrights to the Lao musicians, for instance? Have you made any provisions for that? This is number one. And number two, do you have any policy regarding the piracy of softwares in Laos, regarding intellectual property as well? Software piracy, copies of illegal softwares.
Copies of
Illegal softwares. I can hear that I'm raising an issue which is not taken into account. So two questions: illegal piracy of softwares and music copyrights of music collection for Lao artists and musicians, for instance.
Answer the questions first.
Yeah, sure.
It's up to you.
I think
I was trying to keep yourself busy while you're fixing the problems.
Okay, you can answer the question and we go back to the.
But you can answer later.
Actually, thank you for the very interesting questions. Both of two questions is related to the copyright and related rights, especially for the asking for the regulations or the law that mentioned relating to how to protect their artist or singer that they produce their songs in Laos, and how do they consume the interest or the profits from that. Actually, in our department, we have we are under construction or establish the association for the copyright association. So which this association, they will do the role to set up the rule that for each of restaurants or anywhere that they are open these kinds of music. So all of this music, they already have copyrights. So you have to pay some amount of their good money for that. And then 1 month or they will collect it and then they will allocate to each of the member in the association. This is the tentative plannings for the future that we are going to implementation. And I think the same things for the second question about the illegal of the license of the software. I think this one we don't have much for to do much about this because of the intellectual property issue, like for example, the infringement is belong to the owner to come and complain and make a request with us, and then we will do the action. That is the main things that we can do right now.
Just respectfully keep in mind that should you need some assistance with the foreign or European entity to assist you in collecting copyrights, whether it's for softwares or music or any artistic production, I would be glad to assist with some of my connections.
For the further assistance,
using one of the specific entities in France or in Europe who are actually aiming at collecting copyrights. I know some of them. I am actually the founder of one of these organizations in France called SCAM, Société Civile des Auteurs Multimédia. I took part in the creation of this entity a long time ago, and I can probably bring them in the picture if you wish to. If you need assistance.
I think we are happy to work with that.
Tian can do the connection if you want later. Sorry for interrupting.
Of course.
You can talk furthermore later on.
Okay, with pleasure.
Okay, let me continue for the presentations. Like this is นี่มันบางตัวอย่างเกี่ยวกับสินค้าถิ่นกำเนิดเนาะที่ว่าได้รับการจดทะเบียนแล้วอยู่ที่สปป.ลาวเนาะโดยเฉพาะแม่ตัวทำอิฐเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นตัวสาคอมเมนเนาะตัวนี้จะเป็นอยู่ที่ทางปกแปลงกุศลีแล้วก็ทางมันก็จะมีอยู่ศาสตร์ประเภทศาสตร์มันจะมีอยู่2บอนเนาะก็คือว่ามีแขวงกุศลีบอนนึงแล้วก็แขวงอยู่ที่ปากซองคือบอนนึงเนาะซึ่ง2 สานี่จะมีลักษณะพิเศษที่ว่าแตกต่างกันเนาะมันขึ้นกับภูมิสันฐานแล้วก็ขึ้นกับการโลเคชั่นที่ว่ามันอยู่ที่ว่าติดพันกับอันนั้นเนาะต่อไปตัวนี้ก็จะเป็นสินค้าที่ว่าทิศกำเนิดที่ว่าเป็นผ้าไหมจากหลวงพระบางและจากแกงหัวปันเนาะซึ่ง2แกงนี่ก็จะมีกรรมวิธีในการผลิตชิ้นไหมหรือว่าแผลไหมที่แตกต่างกันเนาะซึ่งมีติดพันกับแต่ละท้องถิ่นนั้นบ่ว่าจะเป็นลวดลายบ่ว่าวัตถุดิบในการนำใช้ในการผลิตแผลชิ้นไหมต่างๆนั้นเนาะก็ถือว่ามีเอกลักษณ์เฉพาะหลายเนาะตัวอย่างตัวนี้มันจะเป็นตัวอย่างของกัมพูชากับไทยเนาะที่ว่าการนำใช้เครื่องหมายGI เนาะเข้ากับผลิตภัณฑ์เนาะซึ่งการที่ว่าเฮ็ดให้นำใช้เครื่องหมายตัวนี้เข้ากับผลิตภัณฑ์จะเฮ็ดให้มีการเพิ่มมูลค่าขึ้นเนาะเพราะว่าจากผลิตภัณฑ์ทั่วไปมีเครื่องหมายการค้าแล้วเนาะแล้ววันนี้คันสมมุติว่าเพิ่มมีการGI เข้าไปถือว่าเป็นการที่ว่ายั่งยืนเรื่องคุณภาพยั่งยืนเรื่องความมีชื่อเสียงยั่งยืนเรื่องความที่ว่าเป็นเอกลักษณ์ท้องถิ่นนั้นๆเนาะจะเฮ็ดให้มูลค่าทางสินค้าตัวนี้เนี่ยเพิ่มสูงขึ้นเนาะและตัวนี้จะเป็นผลดีของที่ว่าการที่ว่า GI นั้นมีสำหรับไทยแร่เนาะก็จะเป็นสำหรับผู้ผลิตหรือว่าผู้ประกอบการนั่นเนาะก็จะมีการสินค้าเนาะก็จะเพิ่มความมาตรฐานเนาะมีความพิเศษที่หลายขึ้นเพราะว่าทุกๆอย่างผลิตภัณฑ์ที่ว่าทับการ GI เนาะจะถือว่าได้มีการยั่งยืนทางคุณภาพเนาะแล้วก็ตัวที่2จะเป็นมีการช่วยดูแลรักษาทางด้านมาตรฐานของสินค้าอันเนาะกับแล้วก็บนเรื่องคุณภาพเนาะก็ถือว่าทุกๆปีเนาะมันจะต้องมีการรักษาคุณภาพตัวนี้กันซึ่งว่าบ่ได้คุณภาพตามที่ได้กำหนดไว้ในเพิ่มข้อว่าคุณกำหนดคุณลักษณะเนาะมันก็จะบ่สามารถเป็นสินค้า GI ได้เนาะแล้วก็จะเห็นให้มีรายได้สูงที่ว่าสูงขึ้นเนาะแล้วก็ต้องมาจะเป็นเรื่องการแก้ไขข้อขัดแย้งอยู่เรื่องทางด้านทรัพย์สินปัญญาเนาะอยู่ที่บ้านของอันเนาะแต่จะส่วนหลายจะทางกลุ่มของพวกเขาจะไปเน้นเกี่ยวกับการแก้ไขที่ว่าทางด้านบริหารจะเป็นส่วนใหญ่เนาะเพราะว่าจะเป็นการคัดค้านหรือคำร้องขอจดทะเบียนการแจ้งปฏิเสธการลบล้างการจดทะเบียนต่างๆนั่นเนาะและการรวมทางการแก้เกี้ยกับละเมิดที่ว่าเป็นการทางด้านบริหารเนาะซึ่งหลักการในการแก้ไขข้อขัดแย้งเกี่ยวกับทรัพย์สินปัญญาเนาะจะสามารถดำเนินด้วยกับโฮมแปดเป็นหนึ่งตัวอย่างจะมีการผลิตประนอมเนาะเป็นขั้นตัวชนิดเนาะก็คือว่า เจรจากันสองฝ่ายนะครับทุกมีคู่กรณีเขาจะมีข้อขัดแย้งกันก็ถือว่าเอามาปรึกษากันหรือว่ามาปรึกษาหารือกันนั่นแหละมาลงกันมาแก้เกียร์ภาษีขนมเป็นต้นเนาะตัวที่3ก็จะเป็นการแก้ไขด้านบริหารเราก็คือว่ายืนคำพ้องยืนอย่างต่างๆนั้นมาทางกลุ่มของเขาแล้วก็ตัวที่3ตัวที่4ก็จะมีการแก้ไขโดยการข้อขัดแย้งด้านเศรษฐกิจเนาะแล้วก็ตัวที่5เป็นการฟ้องต่อศาลประชาชนเนาะสุดท้ายก็เป็นลักษณะที่ว่าเป็นสากลนั่นเนาะตัวนี้ก็ถือว่าเป็นสไลด์เกือบสุดท้ายแล้วเนาะตัวนี้จะบอกเกี่ยวกับการค้นกาเกี่ยวกับทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาตามชายแดนเนาะซึ่งตัวนี้เนาะทางเพื่อเป็นการสกัดกั้นการละเมิดทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาเนาะเจ้าหน้าที่ภาษีอยู่ประจำด้านชายแดนจะมีสิทธิ์เนาะโดยที่เจ้าหน้าที่หรือว่า ex officio เนาะในการค้นกาสินค้าเพื่อจะไปส่งออกหรือว่าจะนำเข้าเนาะแล้วก็ข้าเจ้าก็สามารถมีสิทธิ์ในการยึดหรือว่ากักสินค้าที่ละเมิดกฎหมายการค้าลิขสิทธิ์และสิทธิที่เกี่ยวข้องกับลิขสิทธิ์ตามกฎหมายโดยตัวนี้เนาะข้าเจ้าสามารถแจ้งบรรดารายชื่อหรือว่าสินค้าของตัวเองเนาะที่ได้รับการปกป้องวิธีสปป.ลาวอยู่ตามด้านภาษีเนาะเพื่อให้ทางเจ้าหน้าที่ทางภาษีจะมีการตรวจเกี่ยวกับสินค้าที่ว่านำเข้าหรือส่งออกตัวนี้ได้เนาะเพราะนั้นทั้งหมดนั่นก็เป็นความรู้พื้นฐานเนาะหรือว่าการที่เส้นเกี่ยวกับทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาในที่บ้านเราเนาะโดยเกี่ยวกับกฎหมายการค้าและก็สินกำเนิดและเกี่ยวกับการทหารต่างๆเนาะถ้าสมมุติมีคำถามอย่างนี้ก็ถือว่าสามารถถามได้เนาะในบรรทัดของการปัญญาตัวนี้เนาะก็ขอบใจขอแนะนำเรื่องนี้เนาะอย่างแบบฟอร์มหรือว่าที่อยู่ต่างๆนี่มันสามารถดาวน์โหลดที่ในเว็บไซต์ของกรมทรัพย์สินทางปัญญาเนาะที่ว่าอยู่หน้าจอเนาะจะเรียนใจ
Thank you, Mr. Canton, for your presentation. We can do also for the question. I don't know if we have some in the chat of Zoom. We can also wait, and after Dino made his presentation, we can in the room as well ask questions to both speakers at the end. Yes.
So the floor is mine, right?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Very happy to be here. This is not my first time. I've been doing webinars for now quite some time with the IPO Helpdesk. And before starting my presentation, I would like to actually introduce about the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk, because I will be speaking on behalf of that helpdesk. So maybe you can put the next slide, please. So just a little bit of introduction before I do start the presentation about intellectual property. So the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk is an initiative from the European Commission to help European SMEs to come invest in Laos and indeed also protect their intellectual property rights during their investment in Southeast Asia. So the good thing is that there is a website available full of services free of charge, please, which will help all the European investors, specifically SMEs, in order to know how to better protect their intellectual property rights, but also to register their intellectual property rights. So how does it translate? So as you can see there, inquiry headline, which means that online on the website it's possible to come and write questions to experts like you, for instance. But there's also an office that will be handling all those questions and requests from European SMEs. Also, there are monthly training and workshops and live webinars, like it is the case today. Today is about Laos, but the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk actually cover a large range of countries in Southeast Asia also as well. There are also publications Please, Binbi, next slide. Publication available. So here to explain about the Lao IP framework, what can you do, how to protect, something very handy to actually have a look at in order to understand at a glance, first glance, what can you do about intellectual property rights in Laos, but that cover also other countries from the region. Next slide, please. And please, we would like also to point out that the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk is also available on social medias. So I would suggest that you stay connected with them so that you're aware of any news that could be happening, or even events, webinars, seminars that may be happening for you to be aware of and to know better and understand better intellectual property rights in the region. In addition to that, when you will be going on the website, you will see that there is also some interactive learning tools that will help you, some modules that will help you to actually understand and train yourself at better understanding of the intellectual property rights in the region. So for any further question, I would be happy to take any questions at the end of the webinar. And also you can go on the website and ask exactly what you're looking for in terms of IP in the Southeast Asia region. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, as I said, today I will be acting as an expert of the help desk. And before starting the presentation, I will start to introduce myself a little bit. The picture is a bit old now. I should be thinking about updating it maybe. But it's me. Please, get back. So I'm a French educated legal counsel. I've been now working in Laos specifically for 6-7 years already, and I'm the head of the law firm Tilleke and Gibbins. We do provide full range of services. So today I will be speaking about intellectual property, but we do company formation, also dealing on infrastructure, energy, real estate, all those things, also employment matters. So whatever that is related to business law, we do provide services, and we provide also a full range of services specifically in terms of intellectual property. What does it mean? It means that we handle the registration process of intellectual property assets. We also provide legal advice in terms of intellectual property strategy, how to better protect your rights in Laos and also in other countries where we have an office. And eventually, we do also take care and handle intellectual property enforcement. That's very interesting because those 3 stages are very different. While registration can be rather straightforward if there is no unforeseen obstacle. For instance, intellectual property enforcement would be something totally different for many reasons. But one of the reasons is that the law is in place, but sometimes it lacks also of details in order to be fully implemented evenly across the country. So this is what makes things maybe challenging in Laos sometimes in terms of implementing your intellectual property rights, but it's getting better, much better. Every year we can see that the authorities are getting familiar with intellectual property, and there are possibilities to actually enforce for intellectual property rights in the country. So that's it actually about me. I think I already said a lot. Please, next slide. So today I will be speaking about, I will make one focus actually specifically on intellectual property enforcement. During the past webinars I've been taking part in, I've been speaking a lot about how to register your trademark and all those general overview. In addition to that, we already had a good presentation about what means trademarks, what means also geographical indication. So today I will be focusing on once you have your rights, once you have registered your rights, what can you do in order to enforce it? And I will make a special focus on border control. That's a good thing because we just had a very brief overview about what can we do about that. So for me, I'm actually taking over and I will elaborate a little bit more. Next slide, please. before going into details about border control measures, how to protect your intellectual property rights at the border, the customs level checkpoint, I will just briefly remind what can you do. So we just saw the possibilities that you have by law in order to settle a dispute in relation to intellectual property rights in Laos. I will take maybe the more practical approach, me as a law firm, what we usually do in order to better protect your intellectual property rights. And that's it. This is just a very general overview. So I agree there may be more options available, and happy to elaborate a little bit more at the end of the webinar. So there are different remedies, and all the remedies will have a different objective. But so once you have actually protected, you have secured your intellectual property rights in Laos, let's say you register your trademark, you register your patent, industrial design, geographical indication, whatever, that is available in the law on intellectual property. You have to choose, whenever there is an infringement about your intellectual property rights, you have to choose the best option available in order to protect it. And one of the very common option, classic option, is what we call a cease and desist letter. So what it is exactly? So you're a trademark owner, and you see that someone is actually using your trademark, very similar or even identical for time, okay? And you believe that your rights are being infringed. So what can you do? Actually, the first step that we recommend all the time, and we encourage people for doing, is to write a letter to the infringer. And the tone of the letter can be more or less friendly, depending on the nature of the infringement. But it is very important for you or for any IP owner to write a letter to the infringer saying that we are aware that you're using that trademark. We would like to remind you that we have registered a trademark which is similar or identical, and accordingly we have a monopoly over the right to use that trademark or patent, whatever you have registered. And here the objective is to try to, by way of negotiation, to have the infringer stopping the infringement. Okay, and I have to say it's very effective. So here the good thing also as well is that you don't even need to go to the court. You don't even need to contact the Department of Intellectual Property at this stage. That's something you can do on your by yourself. So just drafting of the letter. About the tone of the letter, as I said, it really depends. In practice, what we can see is that in Laos, many people sometimes they're not even aware of IP law. They don't know that they're infringing anything which is about intellectual property. So that's something that we've seen a lot. And in that case, what we would recommend usually is to have a tone that is not too aggressive, just reminding people that there is IP law in Laos. When I say IP, it would be intellectual property, sorry. There are intellectual property law in Laos. And we would like to draw your attention that the trademark you're using or the intellectual property that you're using is infringing our rights, so please stop. So usually you can also put a deadline for responding before you explore further action. And we will see what are the further action. And I have to say, 60%, 70% of the cases are settled at that stage. Because once you have gathered enough evidences to show that there is an infringement, even though the other party may not be very happy about your letter, but there are facts, right? And there are laws that are very clear in Laos. So usually you may have the other party a bit upset about the letter you sent, but at the end of the day, they will stop. Okay, so for 60, 70%, that's how things work. Sometimes you can see also as well some infringement that are more, more obvious in nature. I would take a quick example. We are representing a big franchise in Laos, a big franchise that is not yet in Laos, that would suit me. And we've seen that there is a fake shop of that shop, but really the same, the brand used is just the same brand as it's used in other countries. Even inside the shop, everything is similar. So here maybe the approach could be more aggressive because there is no way the person didn't know what they are doing, okay? They're using exactly the same trademark, the same logo, the same everything. So here it's not about a lack of awareness, about whether or not they knew that they were infringing any rights. So here you can take maybe a more aggressive approach in talking about what the law offers you in terms of legal action. And we will see that you can go to jail actually whenever you infringe intellectual property rights. Then when the cease and desist doesn't work, then you have different options available. I would say civil action. So here is going to the court for a civil claim. When we talk about civil claim, it would be damages, for instance, okay? So you can indeed, once the negotiation have failed with the infringer, you can go to the court. Negotiation stage is very important because most of the time the court will ask you to try to negotiate first, okay? So if there was not that stage of negotiation of cease and desist letter, it could be that the court refuses to take over on the matter. And they will ask you first, please try to negotiate and then get back to us. This is something that is also written in the law and civil procedure also as well. So the judge is totally legit to ask for negotiation first and having proof that there were negotiation and negotiation have failed. Civil action is something that we encourage to do. However, I have to say in Laos, it's at a very nascent stage. And it's very difficult to actually talk about damage because when we talk about damages, it means to be able to quantify damages relating to the infringement of intellectual property. And that's a very tough job, not just for Laos, but even in Thailand, that would be very complicated sometimes to be able to assess what is your damage regarding the infringement that just occurred, okay? But that's definitely something that we also encourage people to do because we need to have precedent, even though we understand that in Laos it's not very automatic for people to go to the court, which is not a bad thing. But also creating precedent will help maybe to have a more robust judicial system later in the year. Then what is also possible would be criminal action. So criminal action, what it is just filing a complaint with the police or the prosecutor in Laos. This is because since the new penal code, intellectual property rights infringement are actually a criminal offense. Meaning that, and here we're talking about trademark, copyrights, patent, industrial design, geographical indication. It actually falls under the scope of the penal code, which means that there are fines that can be provided against the infringer, but also imprisonment from 3 months to 3 years. So that is not something you would take lightly, actually, if you're infringing intellectual property rights of somebody, because now in Laos, and that's a good thing, you have a real tool in order to warn people to stop, to cease. The problem was before is that since intellectual property right was not a criminal offense, sometimes it was very difficult to have the infringer stopping, right? Because if there are no very strong sanction, they just may want to keep doing whatever they're doing and to keep infringing intellectual property right. But now there is a real incentive with the penal code, okay? And that's something that we use quite often, specifically when we have those very obvious infringement, when people just take open fake shop using trademarks known worldwide. And so that's what we will be usually using. Then what we have also is administrative remedy. We just talked quickly also about it. Administrative remedy will include also redaction. So from the past, and that is actually an option that is available not only for intellectual property rights in Laos, but often what you can do is to file a complaint with the relevant administration, saying that we witnessed some people using illegally IP, intellectual property rights, and we would like, here would be the DIP, Department of Intellectual Property, in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce to take an action. So sometimes what can be done would be a warning, but in the past, what was really useful and what we actually did in the past was a mediation. So the DIP at that time, I have to say that that's something I didn't use personally for some time, but the DIP was able to convene people and to try to have a settlement agreement, okay? But that's based on the willingness of people to want to settle an agreement. That was very good because when you have a mediator like the DIP, who is an expert about intellectual property rights, you provide even more legitimacy to the mediation procedure here. Otherwise, you can also file a complaint with some, in Laos, we have often Laibang, right, the village chief, where he's the one that is able to actually settle many types of different disputes, but they are not an expert in intellectual property. So that could be actually a tough job for them to lead the mediation. So that's why Department of Intellectual Property would be usually the perfect fit for that. Then we have, as part of the administrative remedy redaction, so what it is, you have a trademark owner, you have your brand registered in Laos, but you witness that shops are selling fake goods. So what can you do about it, right? You write a citizen's letter, they don't stop. So what is possible to do actually after having a very thorough investigation about the goods being sold and after proving that the goods are fake or counterfeit, it's possible to file a complaint with the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and here would be more the Department of Domestic Trade. And this department then will review the complaint, set up an ad hoc committee that will involve many other administration, that there will be the Department of Intellectual Property, but also the police, for instance, the prosecutor office also as well, in order to operate a redaction. So basically we go in the shop and we seize the goods. And that is something that is totally feasible in Laos. Sometimes the implementation of such action may take time because, as I said, sometimes the implementation of the law may be uneven throughout the country. But that's an option that is totally available and that we've been doing for quite some time now. And eventually, I would like to focus a little bit about that last option in order to protect your intellectual property rights in Laos. And there have been some recent development about it. So that's why I wanted to have specific focus maybe. It's border control. We also call it customs recall. So what it is you actually, the system in Laos allows you, if you're owner of a trademark, of an intellectual property rights, to go to the Department of Customs in the Ministry of Finance in order to register your trademark or your intellectual property rights, to have them to monitor the border in the event that there is a shipment containing suspicious goods infringing your rights or infringing intellectual property rights. The officer, they have actually the power to stop shipment, to inspect the shipment, and to detain goods infringing intellectual property rights. But usually to do so, they need to receive an application first or notification from the trademark owner or the IP owner, okay? That's something very important, I think, for Laos. As you know, Laos is a hub between the Chinese market, the ASEAN market, and this would be very effective if the system in Laos would improve more and more, because once the goods reach the Lao marketplace, it becomes very difficult to actually to go to each place where the goods are being sold, the fake goods are being sold, right? So the best approach, I believe, would be to be able to stop the goods from entering the market. If it's possible, then we solve a lot of issues, okay? Especially in Laos, where sometimes it's very difficult to go to some remote areas in order to investigate how many shops are selling how many goods. So that's something I would want to develop. Please. Yes. So very briefly, this is not a new option, border control. That's something that was already available before in the law on customs, which was recently amended in 2020. There are, in addition to the law on intellectual property, which I don't mention because we already had a good presentation about it, a good review. There is also two types of regulation allowing IP owner to protect their rights at the border. The instruction, the implementation of the law on customs, it's very common in Laos to have, in addition to the law, another regulation in order to implement better the law, because the law is often very general and it lacks details that helps people to actually implement their rights accordingly. So the instruction, the implementation of the law on customs helps in the implementation of the law on customs. And something that is very of interest for us would be the instruction on the measures of customs officer to protect intellectual property rights. So this is where what we have all the details for people in order to be able to register their intellectual property rights, their intellectual property assets, the customs department, in order to be able to protect their intellectual property at the border. Next slide, please. So, what the law says first. So, sorry, where there is an intellectual property rights holder has reliable information, so which means that you must first investigate about any coming shipment. Then the rights holder can submit an application form to customs officer to conduct an inspection of the shipment that is coming in. So it starts actually with some investigation, because most of the time you would need to first provide some information about upcoming shipment that will be coming from Thailand, let's say, Cambodia, Vietnam, that will be crossing the border to Laos. And whenever a intellectual property rights owner has any suspicion that the shipment contains infringing goods, they can notify the customs department about it. And as you can see, Article 60 of the Law on Customs provide the ability for the customs officer to suspend and conduct, suspend the customs formalities and detain goods. Next slide, please. So, about the measures, I will send that further. About the measures, what can be notified actually at the customs department, with the customs in Laos. The instruction explicitly provide that there are 3 types of intellectual property that you can notify: trademark, industrial design, and copyrights. Okay, but when we read even further the regulation, it talks also about other intellectual property rights. So in practice, you can negotiate to register whatever you want, geographic indication, as long as you have good grounds for it. It's most probably that the officer, they will not reject your application. So trademark, everybody knows it already. We just talked about it. Industrial design will be used, for instance, for cars, motorcycle. When someone is infringing the design of a motorcycle. Then, according to the new instruction, there is explicit ability for industrial design owner to register their industrial design patent at the customs in order to seize any suspicious goods that would be coming into Laos, or even leaving Laos, actually. And then copyrights, that's also something that you can notify to the customs department in order to seize any shipment that would be infringing intellectual property rights. Just a small note, as you can see below, those provisions do not apply to importation of small goods that do not have any commercial nature. Okay, so if you know someone, or if the intellectual property rights owner knows someone that will be crossing Laos with just one bag, okay, that's not something that the officer, the customs officer will be handling. It has to be shipment of a reasonable size, something of a commercial nature. Next slide, please. So, how to actually proceed with the notification? There are a couple of documents to be sent in order to be sent to the customs department and the Ministry of Finance, in order to enable yourself to, or any IP owner, to actually register their intellectual property rights. So, application form from the Ministry of Finance, Customs Department, copy of the certificate, which prove that you are the intellectual property rights holder. So, for instance, here, whenever in Laos you do register a trademark, you will have at the end of the day a trademark certificate, which shows what you have registered, who is the owner of the trademark, and for how long. And that's a must. This is why also it's very important in Laos to register your intellectual property, because you can sell, you can do business, trade, without even registering your trademark. That's not an issue. But at the time you need to protect your rights. If you don't have a certificate granting you a monopoly over your intellectual property rights, then there is no action that will be available to you, because the officer, either the Customs Department, Department of Intellectual Property, or even at the court level, even though it's not yet very common, they will be asking you, do you have a proof or certificate showing that, evidencing that you're the intellectual property right holder, if you have a monopoly over that intellectual property right. So the certificate is very important. Proof that the applicant is the copyright owner. Here it would be just a certificate. Actually, if the company itself that has registered the trademark will be applying for it. But for me, for us as a law firm, we would need, for instance, a power of attorney, just to make sure that we can represent our client in filing an application with the Customs Department. The other thing that is a little bit maybe more difficult and that requires more attention also for individual property rights owner is that you must also provide to the Customs Department a guideline on how to make sure that the goods are genuine goods. And most of the time, the Customs Department will be asking you also as well to have a way to identify genuine goods from fake goods. And they would ask also for sample or example of fake goods. That's very tricky actually, because how can you anticipate all the fake goods that could be created by one, right? So here, the officer from the Customs Department usually would take a very practical approach. The copyright owner willing to register their rights with the Customs Department can actually just mention the most famous fake goods around the region. But anyway, at the end of the day, the one who can say if it's a fake or not, that would be the trademark owner. And we see that at the time that they seize the shipment, the copyright owner will be contacted in order to confirm if the goods are genuine or fake. And eventually, very important also as well, even though it's not mandatory, is information regarding the importer or the exporter of the fake goods or counterfeit goods. Why it is important? Because you can notify, you can ask the Customs Department to take an action if there is any suspicion that's coming into the country. But in practice, without information about the shipment coming in, the officer would generally not take initiative by themselves unless they have solid information, reliable information about the shipment that is coming in containing goods and traveling intellectual property rights. They will not do anything. So this is where, again, investigation is very important, not just in Laos, but that would be from the country of origin where the goods come from. We have many cases where our client actually, or even our team, because we have also an office in Thailand, would give us some evidence, clues about an upcoming shipment in Laos that would be crossing the border on, let's say, D-Day, and where we would ask the authorities to take an action at that very specific checkpoint on that day. It's very effective. If you have that information, it's very effective. Otherwise, it would be very tough for the officer to actually just stop any random shipment in Laos, right? That's it. Next. How long will it take? 10 working days. But 10 working days once your application is complete, full. Before the registration is made, also there may be back and forth question from the customs officer, try to understand the guidelines that we just talked about how to distinguish genuine goods from fake goods, for instance. But generally it takes 10 working days for you to have a proof of your registration at the customs department. But once the registration is made, and I hope there will be some improvement very soon, is that the general department of the customs department situated in EuroCham, will have to contact the other checkpoint for them to ensure that they are aware of any potential incoming shipment. Since there is no yet IT system very developed, usually that application must be handed over to each checkpoint, international checkpoint, in hard copies. So it can take time. There are, I don't know exactly how many checkpoints we have in Laos, but I guess 20 plus, which means that you must send all the application hard copies to each checkpoint, okay? So that can take time. So I would say, in order to ensure that all the checkpoints have been actually aware of your application and can start maybe monitoring the border, it would take something like up to 1 month in practice. That's it. Please, next. Okay, still have a little bit of time. So, how does it work? So let's say you have notified your intellectual property rights. You have also provided information about the upcoming shipment. Then the officer of the custom department will be able to detain and seize the shipment for 3 working days. So during those 3 working days, what's happening? The officer of the custom department, they will contact the owner of the goods, the transporter, or most likely the person has ordered those goods to import it into Laos for selling it, but also the intellectual property owner. Within 3 working days, the intellectual property owner will be requested to go at the checkpoint to check if the goods are genuine or fake goods. Okay, so this must happen within 3 working days. The thing is also as well that the custom department usually don't work with WhatsApp or pictures, meaning that if goods were seized in the southern part of the country at international checkpoint, in the southern part of the country, you must go there and you must provide your opinion whether or not the goods are fake. So that can take a little bit of time, and you have to be very responsive because you have 3 working days to do so. What can happen here? What can happen is that either the owner of the good admits, yeah, it's fake, or doesn't have any proof that it's not fake actually, and doesn't contest. Or the owner of the goods say, no, it's genuine goods. So if the goods have to be detained for more than 3 working days, then the intellectual property rights owner must file an application to temporarily detain the goods for 10 working days. And this is where the deposit will be requested, I think around $800 or so. And if after 10 working days we are still not able to determine whether or not, for some reason, the goods are fake or genuine, then the goods can still be detained, actually, but there must be a motion filed with the Lao People's Court. Ultimately, a judge will be deciding whether or not the goods are fake. I have to say, personally, from our experience, we never reached that stage, because ultimately, anyway, the one that knows if it's fake goods or genuine goods, that would be the intellectual property right owner. The judge is not an expert about determining if your trademark is a fake in that present case, right? So usually, after 3 working days, we have situations where the owner of the goods would contest, try to oppose to the fact that the goods will be seized, but beyond that period, would never happen to us. One thing, if the goods are infringing intellectual property rights, they will be destroyed. And there will be usually a ceremony to destroy those goods. Next slide, please. So, as I said, at the time when after 3 working days, if there is a dispute between the owner of the goods and the intellectual property rights owner, a security deposit will be a must. Security deposit must come from the intellectual property rights owner, just in order to cover any expense that may happen in the event that we found out the goods were actually genuine goods. One thing is that, and I think that's why sometimes it could be a little bit difficult, but never happened yet. If goods are to be seized in different checkpoints at the same time, the security deposit must cover each checkpoint. Okay, so hopefully that will not happen at the same time or many checkpoints, but that's something that could happen. By law, the officer will request you, please, you have to issue another deposit because we just have $840. Maybe actually it's 10 million K. So now I know that it goes very fast in terms of depreciation, so it could be a little bit different now. But the officer, they have the ability to request you to impose that you must pay another deposit for each time there will be a shipment seized. And you have to work in this to do so. So you have to be very fast, okay? Fine. So as I said, the security deposit will be used only if there are some expenses that may occur during the next slide, please. I will try to be brief. We just talked about the fact the ex officio duty or power of the customs officer in the last presentation. So what does it mean exactly? Actually, I said that if you want to have your infringing goods seized at the border, the intellectual property rights owner must provide reliable information and must submit an application to the Customs Department. But actually, the Customs Department officer, they have the right, the power, based on simple sole suspicion to stop the shipment. So this is what ex officio means, is that the officer, just based on mere suspicion, they can stop the shipment. Okay? But in practice, as I said, they will wait for you to file an application to explain what type of goods are being infringed and you have solid information about the upcoming shipment. But that is a good thing that the customs officer has that power because it provides even more legitimacy at the time that they have to seize the shipment, stop the shipment at the border, because the law grants that power to them, even though they may not have that reliable information I was talking about before, but just mere suspicion. But in practice, it doesn't happen. Next slide, please. That's the last slide. You submit an application, and for how long your application will be valid? It's a 2 years protection. So every 2 years, you must renew. But that's a very good development because before it was 1 month. Meaning that every month you have to go and say, please extend because we're not done yet. But now it's 2 years. So for 2 years' time, you have the possibility to actually warn the officer at any time that there will be a upcoming shipment. Okay. But one thing to remember about that procedure would be that it requires also intellectual property owner investigation before the shipment is coming. Don't expect that because you have submitted your application to the Customs Department that your trademark or your rights are protected. Okay? If you don't have solid information about an upcoming shipment, most likely you will never hear about the customs officer calling you say, hey, we have seized some goods. It happens for us, but very, very few cases. The case where we have very good results where when we had the client investigated before the goods reached the border in Laos, and they have solid information that goods are coming. If it's the case, action can be taken, and it's the officer will be responsible. Otherwise, it will be that that solution is not very effective. I think that's it. Billy, next slide. I guess that's the end of it. Just to ensure, yeah, that's the end of it. So I'm happy to take any question that you may have about border control, but about any other type of IP issue that you may face with Laos. Thank you.
Please everyone help yourself with coffee and tea and juice while asking you questions.
Okay. Yeah, so say scenario, if someone is maybe they have rights to import a certain brand or something for apparel or something like that, but then they also know another shop is selling a fake version. Is that an instance where they could try to go after them for that? Or
so can you repeat, please? Sorry.
So if someone has the rights to import and sell like a certain brand, and then they see another shop that's selling presumably a fake version
of that brand, they are
that brand
authorized to import.
Yeah. Right. Is that a case where they could go after them for that, or?
So that's an interesting question because we have that kind of question. So who can take action, right? So here, so two scenarios. the person having the rights to importing that brand, that specific brand, has no license agreement or even distribution agreement. Okay, something that proves that they have the right to act on behalf of the owner in Laos. If so, if there is no proof that rights were not assigned, but the right to defend the mark, the brand, was granted to the distributor in Laos, then there is no action possible from the distributor. The action must be taken from the intellectual property rights owner. Okay, so that's it. One thing to know also as well is that if you have that distribution agreement, license agreement, where we would say the licensee has a right to take any action in order to defend the brand in Laos, to take any legal action against any infringer, according to the regulation from the Department of Intellectual Property, that license agreement must be registered to the Department of Intellectual Property. That will grant the right for the licensee to take action against any infringer. Okay, so I would say, yes, it's possible for the importer in Laos to take action against any other people selling fake goods of that brand they have been authorized to import and sell it, distribute in Laos. But there must be agreement between the trademark owner and the distributor. In addition to that, even though that's not something that they will request all the time, but in addition to that, you must have a proof from the Department of Intellectual Property that that specific license that you have, the license you have over the mark to defend the mark, to protect the mark, has been registered, notified with the Department of Intellectual Property. And that grants the right for the licensee or the franchisee, call it whatever you want, or the distributor in Laos to take action against the infringer. Otherwise, the action must come from the intellectual property rights owner. Yeah, okay.
Another question we have from Zoom is somebody's wondering if there are any known cases of successful prosecution for IP violation in Laos.
So depends what we call about prosecution. Is it at the administrative action stage, at the court stage? Yes, so at administrative action, we have experience with the Department of Intellectual Property in case where we were able to solve dispute through mediation. That's something that happened in the past. Also, as I said before, even before reaching the prosecution stage, just the cease and desist letter I was speaking about in the very first place, where you draft a letter against an infringer to ask him to stop. That's usually something very, very efficient. Now, if we talk about the court, I have to say it's tough in Laos to study. It's challenging to study case at the court level because it's not supposed to be, I mean, I know it's public, but in practice, it's very difficult to actually have information about precedent. But because we've been handling cases like that, we can say that, yes, there have been successful prosecution in civil matter, so where a judge were granting damages to someone whose rights were infringed. But what works a lot now, it's more in terms of criminal action. You go to the economic police, or you go to the prosecutor office, and you file a complaint. Based on the investigation, the evidence that you have collected, the police or the prosecutor, they will do more investigation if necessary, and then the matter will be passed into the judge. And we've been involved in cases where there were sentenced to jail that were actually provided. So yes, now if it's something that is very common in Laos, I would say not yet. Not yet, and that's something we try to promote because the more precedent there will be, the more the judge will have to face those issues, the more they will be familiar and the more they will be more like a normal way to settle things also as well. Especially when, as I said, sometimes you have very hard stake. I mean, sometimes it's not just people didn't know, it's not about that. They're really selling fake goods, fake shop, whatever. And when it becomes obvious like that, we encourage to go to the court or even filing a complaint with the economic police. I was talking about redaction. So basically, you go in a shop, the police or the relevant officer, and you seize goods. Once the redaction is over, it's also possible to file a complaint with the economic police. So we can combine both the redaction, because you must stop the infringement right away. In addition to that, after that, nothing prevents you from, or the IP rights owner, to file a complaint with the police for bringing a criminal charge against the people selling the fake goods. So yes, there are successful prosecution in Laos in this respect. Maybe less than in other countries because the judicial system is nascent still relating to intellectual property, but that's something that is common.
May I
Go, of course.
I've noticed on the presentation that there is a fee of $850, which are supposed to be paid by the potential victim to secure the storage or any costs which might be incurred during the investigation. Once the case is established and the fault has been established and possibly the goods being destroyed, is this money going to be paid back to the victim, which has made the deposit? No, so this money is lost.
No, but that's a good question because it's a very practical question actually that happened that the law, the regulation does not cover.
But let's assume you have 10 points of entry in the country. We're talking of 10 grams. So
yeah, but I mean, so we have some instances where the officer, they say, we have a warehouse. That's not a problem. We will store it. And they didn't ask our client to pay additional fee. But sometimes there are cases where they don't have maybe facilities to store, because sometimes we're talking about a huge amount of goods. And if that happens, they may ask the intellectual property right owner to participate.
They may ask or they will ask.
No, because as I said, sometimes we have situations where they didn't ask, but sometimes yes. I want to say that whenever that happens, everything is documented. Ask them invoice for the storage, where is it stored and everything. But it's just here, I think, in terms of the lack of infrastructure. And sometimes I agree with you. I mean, I would say that it's not fair that the intellectual property rights owner should be paying for that.
Yeah.
And how do you do if nobody wants to pay and the intellectual property rights owner wants to enforce the rights? So what can you do here is maybe once the goods were detained, seized, later on you may file a complaint for civil claim, and you may talk about your damage, that indeed you had also to pay for the cost for storing the goods and so on. So that's what you can do, but it takes time. And when we talk about civil claim, when you file a motion with the Laos People's Court, it takes by law at least 9 months, okay?
And you will have other expense also.
And you may have, you will have other expenses. The lawyers to begin with.
Might not worth it.
Indeed.
If your consignment is below $850, then you realize it's discouraging for people to make sure they are going to file a complaint to the administration, because if the value of the goods is not over the value of the deposit, it's not worth doing it.
I agree, but maybe you should also try to see beyond that, because I would say even our client, so most of the time it's not small SMEs, I have to say, so they have the resources. Maybe for them it's very important to protect the brand, and the storage cost that we're talking about, that's not something that would be huge also as well, really. Sometimes we're talking about a couple of bucks every month for storing goods. We're not even talking about $50 a month. Sometimes it's even less than that. So that's still something that is, I think, affordable.
So the escape route for any importer is to make sure that their consignment is below 850 to discourage the complaint.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
practical. This is what the Chinese importers will do.
Yeah, but for our case, we had several times, we never had a client say, oh, it's too expensive and I don't want to take care of that cost.
So it fits in a broader vision.
Yeah, exactly. We are here talking about the value of the brand, so it goes beyond the $800. But I understand, and I think if you ask me, I don't think it's fair.
No, it's not. That's why I raised the issue.
To have a recourse later to claim those damages and maybe award it to you, but it takes time. You will have more costs in the meantime also.
I understand.
Yeah, but in practice, I never had a case where 10 checkpoints were seizing goods at the same time. Not yet. Maybe it will happen, okay? But not yet.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Okay.
I do have another question out of curiosity. So from what I understand, all of the action and the investigation, and it has to be initiated by the intellectual property owner for any action to to take place. And obviously, when a certain brand will be operating here in Lao PDR, they will be on the lookout and they will take action. I've had the example of one of our members, which is Unilever, have been telling us about the goods being distributed in other channels. I don't even think it was a question of like the good being fake, just that they're supposed to be distributed by them.
It's called parallel import.
Parallel import, yes.
Yeah.
So for that, I understand. And also the thing is that if a brand is not currently having commercial operation in the country, and I'm saying that because you hear a lot, outside people saying, oh, there is no intellectual property in Laos because you see fakes everywhere or something like that. I'm just thinking it's because the rightful owner has not taken any action. And I'm talking about brand, I don't know, like fake luxury brand, the Louis Vuitton, Chanel, stuff like that, because you see all of these bags everywhere, but they are not operating in the country. So I'm guessing they are not taking any action. But basically my question is like, are you aware, is there any like brand that are not operating commercially in Lao PDR that are still trying to protect their brand because of all of the, Apple store, there is no official Apple, and there is no brand. And you said you can, because if this was done properly, there should be a raid on Talatsao every day or something like that because of all of the fake products over there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my question. When they are here, they pay attention. When they are not operating in Laos, it's like open bar, anyone do whatever they want because the owner is not doing anything about it. You guys can.
So I think that we have two questions.
Okay.
One is parallel import.
Yes.
When someone who is not authorized to import the goods, like your extent there, but other shops selling genuine goods, we're not talking about fake goods anymore. But let's say there is a distribution agreement, exclusive distribution agreement, where one person is granting the right to import those goods and to sell it in Laos. But there are other shops just selling exactly the same good and sometimes even at a cheaper price.
Yeah, because they import it like not legally.
They go
yes,
they go to
exactly.
Lucas, right? They buy a lot of goods, discounted goods. They come back to Laos,
yes.
They sell it in Laos. And their goods are genuine, they have the invoices. I mean, we're not talking about fake goods here, but we are talking about different things. Is it prohibited in the Lao law? I say yes. The law on intellectual property says that the trademark owner, I think it's Article 58, for those who have the law of them, the trademark owner or intellectual property rights owner have the right to prevent import, trading of their brand in Laos, okay? So meaning that if a trademark owner, we were talking about Unilever, okay? Let's say Unilever, maybe it's not a good example because they're doing the whole process themselves, but let's say they have a distribution agreement, exclusive distribution agreement with a Lao importer, okay? They give the exclusive rights to the Lao importer. By law, the Lao importer has possibility to take action before the court because someone else is selling the same goods while they have an exclusive distribution agreement. The problem is that my understanding is that for the officer here in Laos, they see parallel import as a good thing also as well, because it provides a possibility for legit business to go in Thailand, buy lots of goods and selling it in Laos at a cheaper price. So basically, at the end of the day, the consumer in Laos will be benefiting of cheaper price, right? The harm here, which is done, will be on the Lao importer because they have invested a lot some time because they have that exclusive distribution agreement. But at the end of the day, they have to compete with other people selling things at a cheaper price. So what can be done, actually? I don't think it's possible to take an action at the border, for instance, based on that. Because at the border, it would be about fake goods, counterfeit goods. So here, the customs officer, they can seize, stop the shipment. But if the goods are genuine, the customs officer, they will do nothing. They will just release the product in the market. What can be done, though, because the law on intellectual property, as I said, give the right to prevent trading of your brand in Laos to any other third parties. You can get an action at the court. So that will translate into damages, but you cannot take an action, a civil claim, but you cannot take a criminal action against those people. So here maybe the efficiency of the legal tools that you have at your disposal in order to take action to stop parallel import is limited. It's possible, and I think also you need to disclose, to tell the third parties that there is an exclusive distribution agreement and only that company is able in Laos to sell that product. There must be some kind of, I think, publication in news media paper so that whenever there is a parallel import that is happening, the third party cannot say, oh, I didn't know. Okay, so I think it's a strategy that is bigger just than to comply with the law says. We must try to advertise that there is a distribution agreement between exclusive one for the distribution of that specific goods. If you see some infringement, you may need first to send a letter to those people saying, the trademark owner has given me exclusive rights, so please stop now, before you can take an action. But that would be a civil action. You cannot stop the goods at the border. That's my opinion. And I know it's very tough because many big companies, especially here in Vientiane, we are 20 kilometers away from, or a little bit more, I guess, from Udon Thani, where we have huge department store where they can buy discounted goods and come back to Laos and sell it at a very cheap price. So for them, that's an issue. And for the Lao importer, that's an issue also as well, because they have invested, but at the end of the day, they have to compete with other people. The other question was about, do you need to have, I don't think commercial presence is appropriate, but do you need to have a physical presence in Laos to have a company, a registered office, in order to be able to protect your intellectual property rights? No. So basically, you can be a trademark owner from Thailand, having registered your trademark in Laos, as long as your trademark is used in the country, meaning that it's sold or it's advertised, you have the right to benefit of intellectual property protection. Those brands that you have mentioned, Louis Vuitton, they don't have any office here, but they can take action because they have registered their rights in Laos, and also because those goods are being used. People are like genuine goods also as well, like Louis Vuitton, right? And sometimes we may also take into account advertisement made on internet for Lao people. So we need to know if or not the trademark is used in the country. And it's not very defined in the Lao law what means to be used, okay? But we can say it's when you have advertisement, it's when the goods is actually sold. Because if there is no use of the trademark as registered in the country, then you may lose, if it's not used for 5 years in a row, you lose your protection. So you cannot prevent people from using your brand if you're not using your brand yourself in the country. But you do not need to have a registered office in the country to do so. Most of the people, because the Lao market is a small market as yet, most of the big multinationals, they don't have a registered office in Laos, but still they have registered a brand here. And so they can protect it because people are using it here in the country. If you can prove that the trademark is not used for 5 years, it's pretty tough, I think. If you cannot prove it, then you don't have the right to use the same trademark. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just before another question, but somebody's got a guide on administrative actions in Southeast Asia on the Zoom chat for download if somebody's interested in the subject. So you're talking about administrative actions. Somebody put a guide on that.
Ah,
sure. Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, all yours.
Yeah, more for SMEs. For example, ones who maybe there's some cafes or restaurants that have different branches. Some I think have kind of set up somewhat of a franchise model. What sort of, is there actually any sort of franchise protection for their brand? Like if someone opens up another shop that they didn't authorize or that didn't pay some fee.
Yeah.
There's of course they can.
So here I think, yeah, so basically if you open a franchise, but you don't have the rights from the trademark owner. So you're infringing the trademark owner right.
I mean, for a local, allow, not a international, but it's allowed.
Could be whatever, actually. So the franchise agreement itself does not need to be registered with the Department of Intellectual Property. First of all, what we will be seeing is that is the trademark the franchise is using registered or not in the country? If the trademark is registered and the franchisee or someone who's faking to open a shop that is authorized by the trademark owner, but actually is not. If that person opened a shop using that trademark that is registered, okay, to deceive consumers, I mean, basically that's the point, right? That it's endorsed by the trademark owner, but it's not. Then here there is an infringement of the trademark. So the trademark owner can take an action against that fake shop anymore, because that fake shop didn't ask for the authorization from the trademark owner. And as I said, the trademark owner will have a monopoly over the use of the trademark. So one cannot open a shop using a trademark that is registered unless they had the authorization to do so. Yeah. Is that
right? Yeah, so they would just need to go through that process of making sure it's registered. Otherwise,
First,
there wouldn't be
yeah.
any protection.
As I said, you can trade in Laos, you can do business about the trademark that is not registered. That's totally possible. But the problem that will happen is that if someone is infringing your trademark and registered trademark, how can you protect it if you don't have a proof, a certificate for that? That will be most likely not possible or very, very difficult. Because in some countries, I would say USA, for instance, in registered mark, they have some rights. In Laos, there is nothing in the law that say otherwise. But in practice, whenever you go to the court, whenever you want to take an action, the authorities will ask you, do you have a certificate? If you don't, then you don't have the right to take action. And that's very important for you to actually register even before doing business about that mark you would be using. Because if you start doing business, your trademark becomes a little bit famous, someone else register your trademark, then that someone else will have monopoly over the mark that you didn't have registered. Can you take action to actually cancel that registration that was made not in good faith by another party? You can take action, but will it be successful? I don't know. So if you're actually doing business in Laos without registering your mark, you will take a lot of risks. You may say, oh yeah, but I know I'm the legitimate owner, and later I will just cancel the trademark because it was not used in good faith. But in practice, nobody can tell you how the judge will decide about it, how the Department of Intellectual Property will decide also about it. Maybe the other person, they have like good grounds also to register the mark and to be legitimate owner. So I would say before you actually use a trademark, register it so that you're sure that you have secured the right to use that trademark. I think we've been a little bit over maybe the time, but I'm fine if you.
Yeah, it's 11, so we can stop here if you don't have any.
Zoom, I think Zoom is done. No more questions.
No more questions.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, well, thank you. Both of you, and you want to add something?
Actually, related to the franchise or this one, we have like a very good example for like PDR, like the gas
At the
station.
gas station.
So they have many brands in like they want to open. So as a part of our department, so like normally they have to like inform us like, okay, how many like licensees that they already give allowance for them. So they have just come to the office and then announce that this is they have like 52 license for the others. So they just informed us, and then they can the owners the new owners they'll have the rights of their license as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's very interesting. Good.
I think we're seeing a lot more franchises open, mainly coming in from Thailand. But Lao people are starting to create their own franchise, and I think that's what Casey is talking about. Is that there are SMEs that are now following the Thai brand and are opening their own franchise. and maybe they're not going in the right direction and getting their, the rights first, then open. I think in the mentality is that let's try it first, and if it works, then we will move on. But in what you're saying is, when you're too successful, then you actually will cut yourself, because then the people will copyright, or sorry, trademark first, and then will cut you out, even though you're the original founder.
Agreed. And what we can see actually in Laos is that most of the time when we talk about investment into legal protection, that's still seen as an expense, not investment actually.
Expense.
So when we talk about registering a trademark, sometimes say, oh, it's expensive actually. But you want to develop a brand, to sell a lot of product according to that brand. So it shouldn't be seen like that. But yeah, I agree with you. Most of the time we want to try and see first and then register. But there is a risk that someone else just register it.
And touching on your the fee, the $840 fee, kind of continues into what you're saying, is that it's not just that one-time fee; it affects you overall, in your brand, and then you can also take civil actions, to recover that from the person that that was bringing in the illegal products too. So correct.
And one thing also as well. So I will be mentioning about maybe specifically trademark, because in Laos, this is what most of infringement are about. But when you register a trademark, they have a protection for 10 years, which can be renewed all the time. So the biggest cost will be at the time that you register your mark. But it's not that much actually. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying that because that's my job, but it's not a lot. And then the extension will be even cheaper. And I think the protection you get out of it is just priceless. I mean, right? I mean, when you work a lot on marketing for the use of a brand, right? Marketing material, when you hire people to develop that brand, there is a lot at stake here. So just the registration of one trademark, I think is not a lot, but maybe the mentality is now changing in Laos because of the good work also of the Department of Intellectual Property, going to provinces, even speaking to farmers or small SMEs in Laos. But it will take time anyway. But yeah, I agree that I think it's better to register first before you go full on marketing it.
So I have a follow-up question about this, because I do have of my member, we are offering a junior membership, which is basically individuals who are starting their company, but they are not officially registered yet. They're, they could be coffee makers or fashion designer. It's like a one-person company at the moment, and they are just starting, and they have probably not registered yet, and they are in the process of doing all that. So if I were to encourage them to register their trademark, what fashion design they are doing, whatever, what should I tell them? Because they will say, oh, it's expensive. Like, roughly, how much would it cost? Can they do it themselves? Do they have to hire help from, lawyers? How can I convince them to say this is your first step?
Me, I would say go to the Department of Intellectual Property. They have a service, one-stop service you do, where they can provide some advice.
One-stop service.
I don't know. I don't remember somebody can.
IP Service Center.
Exactly. So you can go there and ask like advice from them.
But actually, they only consult for how to write the complete the application.
Okay.
Like to convince this, like
no, but what I mean is sometimes what can maybe rebuke people also as well is the first step, how to register it. Is it difficult or not, right? So I think you may want to demystify it when you go to the intellectual property department first. They will explain to you how to. Now, in terms of how to encourage, as I said, if you want to develop a brand, if you want to promote that brand, to give it a value, it must be registered. Otherwise, it's just open for anybody to copy it. And all the effort that you would have put in developing the brand, for people recognize your brand among all the other brands, will be deleted if you didn't register it. So I don't know exactly the official fee for registering a trademark.
1,500,000.
500,000.
But 1,500,000.
1,500,000.
1.5. So $100.
$100 for
Almost everyone.
10 years protection.
Yes, for 10 years.
Yeah, that's not much.
So I think what she mentioned was too expensive, and I think it's the lack of knowledge is that initial too expensive, because people don't know. People don't know that you have to register, right? I would say that 99% of the people in Laos don't even know what DIP is. Wow. Right? And the SMEs that are trying to get started don't even know that they should register first. And I can almost guarantee you that they don't know it costs $100 for 10 years to protect. And that's something that that can be put out there more, so for more SMEs to be more proactive. Right?
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of education work also as well that must be done, and which is something that the Department of Intellectual Property is doing. We even saw like geographical indication, and here we're talking to farmers basically, right? And they're getting more and more aware of the positive side of being the owner, be able to sell a product that is recognizable for consumer from among different type of products. So I think it will take time, but we can see that change in the mentality also as well. But again, I do think it's still important to protect the rights, and that the cost is not so high. The only thing that you may need actually at the time that you register is to understand how the system works. And I think that's where the Department of Intellectual Property also can help you. Because when you register a brand, you must say, for instance, for what type of goods you want to register the brand, right? Is it for a car? Is it for a shirt? So the protection will be granted only upon brand using in the automotive industry, if you register your brand for the car industry, for instance. So you may need to have some kind of advice in that regard first, in order to ensure that you're registering properly your brand, and that you're not overly protecting your brand also by maybe it's not necessary. If you want to register a brand and you just sell shirts, you may want to register your brand according to the garment industry, right? You don't need to register your brand to protect the use of cars using your brand, for instance. So that's where, again, I think the Department of Intellectual Property can help.
Actually, the applicants that can submit or file the application, it can be like just be the person, like you don't have any like business, or you have just the idea to create a logo and then you also some application, or like you have to be societies or like organization registry group that they can submit the application.
So you can register
a trademark
whether you're a
just a normal
business
person
or just an individual.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And then
First, okay.
And right now, as Dino mentioned, like we expand the press where we can receive the application. Like in each province, you can go to the division of Ministry, Industrial and Commerce. So they will receive all of the application relating to the intellectual properties. And in very near future, we will open the e-filing. So this is where we will open for for the representative first to use the e-filing to submit the application form. So it's much more easier and convenient for the user. I think that is and another thing is that the question about they don't know how to register or not is I think every year in our department, we have a very big promotion. Like every year we have IP fair. So it is every year we have a fair in the iTech so this is we have more than 200 booth to come to show or represent their product, or we also including a seminar, the public awareness about this. This year, we celebrate the IP Day, the World IP Day in National University, because the theme is the aim to the youth and IP for the innovating and for the better future. So this will be very encourage the youth how to like know or like aware about the IPs, how to, after they are researched or they like invent something, so they have to aware that, okay, after doing something, so they have the interactive behind to register. So I think, yeah, we also like seek for any suggestion for us to make more people aware about this as well. Like we also have the idea for to come to the Department of Business Registry. So like after they register their business, so like the next step, okay, maybe they can come to the intellectual properties for register for their trademark. Yeah, that is the plan for us, that to go, like to make people more aware about it. Yes.
I agree with what you're saying about the getting your license and then having the trademark right there too. The next step.
Yeah.
Registering to get a license in Laos is more expensive than getting a IP, right, to your intellectual. It is, and people just are so accustomed to doing it that they'll just register for a license without even thinking about the cost, because it's not too expensive, but it's actually more expensive than it is to get your IP.
Yes, of course. Okay, I guess this is the time we've got. If we have no more questions, no more comments, I think we can give a big round of applause to both our speakers. And then I guess we can thank you everyone on Zoom as well for having joined. We're very happy, EuroCham Laos is very happy to have co-host this event with the Southeast Asia Intellectual Property SME Helpdesk. And hope to see you again next quarter for another event. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like your question about the
You can close
music industry.